What if your deepest adversity became your leadership superpower? Pam Dwyer is here. She's a best-selling author, keynote speaker, and the creator of the Plus One Theory. Pam helps professionals turn trauma into transformation, and she's the voice behind From the Piney Woods, published under pen name PJ Hamilton, and she's a master at using storytelling, kindness, and resilience to drive real growth. My name is Robert Plank. This is the Marketer of the Day podcast. My website is dfypodcast.com. We remove that you can lead with your voice, but the star of the show, the person of the hour here is Miss Pam Dwyer, who is here to talk about personal breakthroughs, leadership, kindness, and so much more. So, Miss Pam, glad to be speaking with you.
Well, thanks for having me, Robert. I'm so happy to be here.
Happy to have you. And so we did our best to hype up the audience, introduce with your bio, but what are you all about? In your own words, what has you focused and passionate lately?
Oh my goodness. I guess the Plus One Theory is my it's grabbed my full attention, and it's getting all of my efforts into getting that message out there through storytelling and through podcast and through every way I can get it out there. But the Plus One Theory is doing your best, plus one more, in small, intentional steps. So whatever your goal is, we're going to try and achieve it little by little.
I like it. It gives me flashbacks to things like when you played baseball and they said when you swing the bat, don't just swing the bat to like hit the ball and then stop, like swing it through, like give more than you think that you need to do. And whenever you think you do a good job, right, you hammer the fence in place, you paint the fence. You always end up doing more work than you think you committed to, just because that's how life is, isn't it? It's like you hope for the best and plan for the worst. You always have to do that plus one, don't you?
Well, you really do. And raising my two kids, they're grown adults now. But when they were young, trying to explain that to a child, how you don't do just what's asked of you. You need to go above and beyond and do a little more. And so I had to give them a visual, an example. And my best visual for the Plus One Theory is running the 4 laps for a mile around the track. And when I was young, I just was terribly out of shape, and we were very poor, so I wasn't eating well. And so I never could run more than 1 lap. But our coach would always say, if you stop running and start walking, you're going to start over from the beginning. And so it was just so traumatic for me. And so finally one day I just started doing a slow trot, and that counted as a run. And I got around to lap 2 and I couldn't breathe and my legs were on fire, but I managed to do lap 3. But when I was on that final lap, something happened. And this is when I realized that I started thinking about all the trauma and all the abuse that I was experiencing as a kid. And I got kind of angry, right? It was an energy. And so I don't know where I found it. I dug deep and I found this last bit of energy, and I ran so fast on that 4th lap that it surprised me and everyone else that was waiting on me. But I finished strong. And that is my message, is we need to finish stronger than we started.
I like it. And then what you come out from that, what you remember is mostly the finishing strong, right? The weak start, like what does that even matter as long as you finish strong? And there's so much good stuff in that, right? It's like what you described there about like the physical fitness. There's like some Arnold Schwarzenegger thing where he says like if you're lifting a weight, if you're doing like 10 reps and the first like 6 or 7 are easy, but then 7, 8, 9, 10, like that's when it hurts, but that's when you're building the muscle. And then I think we can all relate to going through that mental game of like the bad stuff comes out, right? The kind of the pent up anger and the childhood trauma from like 30, 40 years ago comes out. And then you find a way to get it out of there and feel better afterwards, or at least, work on yourself. And you say that there's a lot important here about like passing on a good message to the next generation and like helping others in general, right? And so you came across this breakthrough here, the Plus One Theory, and doing a little more and pushing yourself. And then how did that evolve into something that's reusable? How did it become this whole leadership framework?
Oh my goodness. I'm going to call it a movement, because it started with From the Piney Woods, right? So just to give you a little background, my childhood was very abusive, very traumatic, very dysfunctional. And so growing up like that, you have a lot of issues as a young adult. And so I started going to counseling, right? And so I went to probably about 8 years of counseling, but they would always tell me to journal my feelings, you know, and then bring it back with me to the next appointment. And so I would bring my journal, and before long, they were so excited to read my entries. They're like, we can't wait to read what you wrote. Because sometimes they would laugh, sometimes they would cry, and that's when they said, Pam, you really need to write a book. And that's when the seed was planted. And so that's how From the Piney Woods, my actual journal notes are every few chapters, and it shows the brokenness. And then the following chapters show what caused it. And so when I published it, I wasn't ready for the number of people that were very touched and inspired by the story. And so I started talking about it, going wherever anyone would listen to me, but to hear my story. But most importantly, a lot of times when speakers talk, listeners don't want to hear your story. It doesn't need to be all about me. It needs to be about what they can take away from the story for themselves. And so I started doing that. I started talking to them and telling them how to let their past problems or past experiences stay there. Use it for energy and then move forward. But your past doesn't define you. It prepares you. It makes you stronger. We're in training. We're educating ourselves. There's no such thing as failure in my world.
Well,
It's
nice. And
just
you touched on the way there's two things, and I don't even know which path to go on, but like you touched on a couple of amazing ideas. One is that your past is there, you didn't forget it, it's still there. And like I struggle with that a lot, right? Like I'll get triggered by something random, and I'll like, some bad memory will come up, and I feel like I'm better now than I was maybe 4 or 5 years ago, but it's still there. And I struggle with that. It's just the whole like remembering something and being like, well, I guess it's good that I have that memory because like I'm better now, and it reminds me of like what not to do. But it still hurts, and it hurts at different levels sometimes. And there's that aspect of it, and there's also what you figured out as far as like shaping your speaking message, right? Because it's really tempting to like share all your pain and like trauma dump, and then it's kind of like just a complaint list, and it doesn't help anyone. And to kind of, like you said, like help them relate to it and help them see that. And so, I mean, I just dumped two different ideas on you, but like, what do you think about that? Like, how have you turned all this pain into something good for others?
Well, first of all, I learned it from my actual therapy sessions. They said, I said, "Are you going to make this all go away, all this pain?" And they're like, "No, it never goes away." And I thought, "What?" But a lot of people don't realize that with counseling, your pain is forever. It's inside of you always. But what they do is they say, "Well, we're going to teach you how to cope with it. We're going to give you coping skills." So once I realized that this pain was forever, I thought, man, I just want to make use of it. I'm going to make it worth my while. I'm going to make it worth the pain. So I just, in my mind and in my heart, I was just using it like fuel, right? So to propel me forward, to make improvements in my life, to make an impact. Because the more kind I was to people, the more impact I made in their lives in a positive way, that was healing for me. And it was strengthening all my coping skills. And
Yeah.
so I don't know if that answered your question, but that's how I use the pain for purpose. And life still happens. You know what surprised me, Robert, is that talking to people, I thought I was one of few that had this horrible childhood, but I am one of many. There's so many people that have bad experiences in all forms and far worse than even what I experienced. But if you help them understand that they can use that pain to do good things in this world, then and that's how I use the plus one. I talk to one person at a time. I can't reach the world, because quite frankly, people are loving to hate right now, right? And
Right.
so if I just talk about kindness or about just applying ourselves to improve other people's lives a little bit at a time, maybe it'll make a difference. Maybe it'll add up. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, and it'll help different people in different ways every single day. And so you mentioned this idea of coping skills. And when you think about any kind of skills, right? If someone is carpenter, you figure like they can lay carpet, they can build stairs, they can fix up a wall, right? There's a subset of the skills. So you say coping skills. How does that break down? What are the pieces?
Oh my gosh. Well, coping skills, that means you have to, first of all, your mindset has to change, right? Mindset is everything. And so you have to, first of all, accept that you are maybe full of fear or shame or guilt. You have to identify and name whatever it is that is giving you issues or giving you fear or, whatever the shame or the guilt. Those are the things that bind all of us, right? And they prevent us from moving forward. So I would say figure out what's broken. And man, we're going to go there in a minute, but figure out what's broken and then move forward with that. Once you name it, that's what I named the plus one theory. I'm going to name it so that I can use it. So you have to identify what's broken so that then you can start learning how to cope with it little bits at a time.
Okay, so I'm sure that helps to simplify, right? It helps us break out of the loops and say, well, I'm so unique and my big, long, convoluted story, it's so unlike anything else. And you say, no, like, here's the guilt, here's the shame, here's the pain you're feeling, you label it. And then I imagine that when those bad thoughts come up again, you can be like, well, hey, I know that your brain's tricking you and thinking it's something new and this is worth your attention, but hey, this is that label that you identified like 2 months ago. So it's just more of the same and you have the skill to deal with that.
Right. And what I was going to tell you, what I got excited about earlier, is that 2 weeks ago, Robert, tell me, do you remember what your emotions were 2 weeks ago?
2 weeks ago, no.
No, none of us do. All right. That's normal. It's human of us. That's why a lot of people don't like the thought of journaling, right? But there's digital journals. You don't have to handwrite it. But if you journal what you're feeling with one sentence or one paragraph every single day, and then you can reflect on it. That's what saved me. That's what helped me cope, learn coping skills, is by reflecting, right? Looking back a month ago, oh, I was feeling this when this happened. And now I'm feeling it again. You can start identifying patterns, in your behavior. Because sometimes, we don't recognize what's broken. But if you journal down every single day what you're feeling, you will see it. You'll see a pattern. And then you'll be able to address it and fix it. Well, cope with it.
Ooh, there you go. It's still there, right? Never goes away, but you have ways of dealing with it. And I like how you position journaling as it's just a few sentences, right? The young kids call it bullet journaling, I think, where there's this idea of you're not writing like 20 pages and then you off, you're just like checking in with yourself and you're doing it in little tiny bits. And I know that you're big on this term kindness. And like that struck with me because a few months ago, I was talking to a therapist and she said like, hey, don't forget to be kind to yourself. And like, what does that mean? Like, have you struggled with it? What do people usually push back with you when you mention this term kindness?
Yes. Oh my goodness. People don't mind doing little acts of kindness for others, but when it comes to themselves, they're their worst critic. I mean, we are so hard on ourselves. When we look in the mirror, well, we don't like what we see. We don't like the way we sound. I mean, this whole podcast thing, I had to listen to my voice and I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't like my voice. But I have a message, I have a story to tell. So I have to get over that. This is who I am. This is the way my voice is. This is the way I look. All those things, we need to quit beating ourselves up. So kindness needs to apply to us first, because if we aren't kind to ourselves, then how in the heck can we be kind to others? It's the same thing about if you don't love yourself, you can't love others. It's the same with kindness. Kindness
And
is powerful.
I agree, and it's so tough, right? It's tough to sometimes like take these things to heart, but you said a lot of good things, right? Like if you can't be kind to yourself, how can you be kind to others? And do you find yourself sometimes like struggling with there's like these weird emotional hangups, right? There's these repeat patterns, so they're really stuck in there, and then sometimes through journaling or going to counseling or reading, we get these ahas, these conclusions, these like logical ways around it. But it seems like the emotional muck that's stuck in there, it's really strong. and the logical that seems to be the solution, it's real weak at first. So do you ever say, like, you hear some technique, or you hear some saying, and you say, that's powerful, that's helpful, but it sometimes takes a while to break through, or it seems to be like not as strong as those deep, dark emotions that are just stuck in there?
Right, because that's literally your 7-year-old child inside of you. Or, whenever that thing happened that caused a lot of trauma or drama for you is living inside of you. And so I always have to remind myself, I am listening to a 7-year-old telling me how to feel and telling me that I should feel bad about myself. What am I doing? I'm the adult here. But, also you have to remember to maintain the status you've acquired. So maintenance, people don't think about that with weight loss, with, educating yourself, knowledge. You think you've reached the mountaintop, so to speak. You've reached your goal, but mentality is that, depression or emotions are the same thing. You're never going to be at the mountaintop. You should always be in a mental state of trying to improve yourself. Even when you think, okay, I've accomplished this goal, well, then what's the next goal? You know, if you feel so good about who you are and what you're doing, then what can we do for that person over there to help them feel this way? So there's always some way to improve and to grow and to maintain. Maintenance is critical in that manner. So I hope that answered your question, but I could go
Yeah.
on and on. I get very, very passionate about all of it because I wish it's a story and I've lived it. And I think that that speaks volumes to people that are listening. It's not me just giving book knowledge. I'm telling you, if I've experienced this and I'm still living it, because I'm always going to be in a status of maintenance.
Yes. And that's a tough mindset, and that's a tough conclusion. That's one of those just blunt adult facts of life, isn't it? That
Mhm.
maintenance is a lot of what we do, and it's not exciting. It's not as sexy as being like, "Hey, I'm doing this new project, right? I'm super overweight. I'm getting in shape. I've got a project." Well, then when you're done, then there's the ongoing, continuous growth, and but it's like once you have something figured out and you've got a system, you got some momentum, then it's not as tough as it was starting from zero. And you're mentioning about sharing your story and this sort of ripple effect of helping others. And
Mhm.
I know that you teach storytelling to people. And I know that I hear this, I'm sure you hear this. People say all the time, I don't have a story, right? Like I get these LinkedIn messages all the time. And even a guy earlier, I can't find the exact one, but I get like, oh, I don't have a story. Like, I want to be on your pod. Here we go. I hate to disappoint you, but I don't have much of a story at all. You can't really tell, but I promise I'm not making it up, right? And in the middle it says, I don't have a story at all. So people actually say this, right? They say, well, I want to help others, change lives, grow as a person, build a business, make money, create my legacy. Oh, but I don't have a story. So what do you say to someone like that who says,
Mhm.
Pam, I don't have a story?
If you're living and breathing and living life, you have a story. And it doesn't have to be sad or abusive or all these negative things. It can be that you have a great life. You had amazing parents. Then you are going to be a mentor. You're going to be a living example of what happens when you break the cycle of abuse. It is a cycle. They teach you that whatever happens from your parents, we tend to do as parents ourselves. Well, what about the person over there that's had the amazing childhood, had everything go perfect in their lives? They think they don't have a story, but they really do. That we need to hear that. Most people are broken in one way or another, but we need to hear the good stories. It gives us hope. So, yes, he does have a story of hope. That's what he has.
He does have when he just needs to look deeper and maybe look at the positive instead of the negative. And
Yeah.
I'm enjoying this conversation that we're having about all these different subjects, right? There's the childhood
I
trauma,
know we're
there's the
everywhere.
emotional intelligence, there's the journaling, but that's, as far as I'm concerned, that's the best kind of podcast where you ping pong all around different subjects. But we're starting to get short on time, and I want to make sure that we talk about what interests you. And so in this conversation we're having, what's the missing hidden question? What's the question that I should be asking you? I just don't know what to ask you.
Where am I going with all of this?
Ooh,
What is my mission? What is my calling? I call it a calling. I'm a retired youth pastor, so It's a calling. I feel very led. I have this huge message inside of me to encourage and motivate people to look inside so that they can start looking outside. And so I started on this path of being a speaker. And I have spoke publicly so many times, but it's tough when you are beginning in beginning as a speaker because people don't want to hire you because you're number one, not famous, or number two, you're just not known. There's no in between. And so my message would be if you know of anyone that wants to hire a speaker that is on fire for an amazing message, give me a call. Let me know and I'll come and make it the best talk you've ever heard. I am slowly branching out, but the Plus One Theory is a book that I hope to publish before year end. And I want to have workshops and just educate people. So I guess what we're not asking is, what's the plan? How can you help me and grow this? And that is by giving me opportunities to speak. You can be a guest on my podcast, which I would love to have you, Robert.
Let's
Probably
do
know a
it.
lot of stories. But if you go to pamdwyerspeaker.com, everything that I'm doing, which is a lot, I do short stories every Tuesday. They're fun, they're humorous, they're feel good stories, and people are loving those. But I just any way you can hear my message, and let me know. If it impacted you, if you don't like it, that's okay. I need to hear that too. So just communicate with me. Let me know how I can be better. And because I'm always in maintenance mode, as we talked about, but I just want to improve so that more people can hear this message. I think it's important.
It is. And massive respect to you doing the speaker thing, right? Speaking is a lot of work. All people see is like, oh, I give this one talk. And you're like, hey, I'm doing all this prospecting. I'm getting all these podcasts. I'm doing the blog posts, the email marketing, working on, there's the original
Yes.
book, then there's the new book, there's the website. And so massive respect to just all the work that goes into that and the attention to detail and the perfectionism and all that good stuff. And so we said that website is pamdwyerspeaker.com. That last name is spelled Dwyer. PamDwyerSpeaker.com. Your journey to purpose-driven success starts here. And you can go there and find out all about the Plus One Theory podcast. And if this Plus One concept it excites, it ignites, and relates to you, then you can go to PamDwyerSpeaker.com, join her email list, and find out how to get empowered to transform past pain into powerful purpose, one small step at a time. And what's really also amazing about you, Pam, and the speaker mindset that you're in is you're like, hey, when we're coming up on the time slot, you wrap up, right? I said 20 minutes, and sometimes people, it's getting on like the 40-minute mark. You're like, hey, I got my speaking slot. And you say it's time to wrap it up. It's time to leave them thirsty for more and send them on their way. And so that call to action is pamdwyerspeaker.com, and all the links are there. You can find From the Piney Woods, the book that we mentioned, get on her newsletter. There's the crowdfunding for the upcoming book, the store, and the Chapter Chatter book club, and so much more. PamDwyerSpeaker.com. But before I let you go, Miss Pam, it's time for the scary part of the show. It's time to put you on the spot. It is
Okay.
time to ask about a fun quote or lesson that has served you in life or in business. I'm sure you have a lot, but what do you think is appropriate today for a fun quote or lesson?
Well, I think it's appropriate for all the things that we've talked about. It's I don't know if you know of Rumi, but he is a very famous poet from way back. But I love the wound is the place where the light enters you.
Ooh,
And that means it's pretty much the same as my mantra, which is your past doesn't define you, it prepares you. It's basically the same meaning. But I really like how he says that. So your wound is where the light enters.
I like
And
it.
so that's my quote. And that's all I've got for you. But thank you for having me on here today and letting me just explode on you.
Of course, and that's there's nothing wrong with exploding, right? It gives us some shrapnel to pick through and say, hey, I like she said item number 3 and item number 7, and sometimes we get one little tidbit on a podcast and it sticks with us for months, years, if not the rest of our life. And so, if you like what Pam had to say, if you're intrigued, you're interested, you want to find out more about her speaking and her blog and her upcoming book, PamDwyerSpeaker.com. Go there right now. You'll love it. Find out all about the Plus One Theory. Listen to that podcast. And thank you very much, Pam, for being generous, being kind, being open and honest, and helping us out. Really appreciate you being here.
You're so welcome, Robert. Thank you.